Okay, so to start with, we're just going to take this top cap off. So we're going to be processing this down, so it's going to be a ribeye rack ready to slice out. So we need to take this cap off as we're not leaving it on for a roast. So as you can see, I'm just getting in underneath this seam here and just peeling it back slowly. It will then separate and leave the scotch on the bone, and the cap will all come off in one piece. Now, majority of the time you will be able to just get in underneath with your fingers and hands and pull it off. If it does get caught at all, you can just nick it with your knife just to help it along, but a lot of the time you will be able to pull it off without even using a knife. Once you do get all the way around to the side that has the paddywhack there, you can just go hard against the bench and just chop it off. Then that top cap will just get put aside. That can be trimmed out at a later date. Now you just want to mark hard down against these rib bones, but don't go any lower than where that little triangle of fat is there, as it will cause the meat to separate and fall off the bone. Now you can just begin to mark hard against the top of these rib bones, just to cut off any meat and fat before you actually do start fleecing out the intercostal muscles in between the ribs. Okay, so now you want to move on to actually fleecing out your ribs here. So you'll notice that the ribs aren't perfectly circular or square, they are a bit of an oval shape. So you'll want to come in on one angle and then come down the other side on a slightly different angle. You can come back and clean up your bones a bit more and take off any extra meat or fat, but this will get the vast majority of the meat off in your first go. So all of these intercostal muscles will be saved and put into sausages used at a later date. Alright, so now we want to mark hard up against this chine bone. Doing it at this stage will make it a lot easier than having to do it later on. So whilst you've got it on the bench here, you can sit it on the edge and have the ribs falling off the side, and it will stand up nice and straight and allow you to mark hard down along it. Once the chine bone's marked, I like to just bang it on the bench just to snap that chine bone. It'll make the meat actually sit a bit flatter on the bandsaw. Now putting it through the bandsaw here, the idea is to go right at the very base of the ribs here. That way the blade will come out the other side right at the base of the chine bone, removing both at the same time. Now this chine bone will just go in the bin, or you can cut it up for dog bones. Now you can go along and just scrape off this bone dust now, or you can do it at the end. It's completely up to you. I like to scrape off the bone dust at the start rather than at the end. That's just a personal preference, each to their own. So now I'm going to be at the point where I'm just going to trim the underneath of the actual scotch on the ribeye here, just to get rid of any of these little bits of dry bits of meat that didn't have chine bone covering it, or to remove any of these little bits of bark from where I've marked hard against the chine bone. You also want to remove your paddywhack now as well. That way you can choose to either slice it out or cryovac it down for a later date, depending on what's needed. Just being careful not to remove too much of the actual fat and connective tissue on top of the scotch here, because it will actually keep the muscles together. If you remove too much, the scotch muscles will fall apart. So what I like to do is just take a face cut off at both ends. That way I'm removing any dry edging that's on the actual ribeye, and if I want to place it in the window on display, I can do so, or I can cryovac it down to slice at a later date. So that's your ribeye ready to slice out for steaks or as a ribeye roast. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.